It started on a Saturday morning. Not one of those peaceful ones with pancakes and cartoons. No, this one came with accusations over dishes in the sink and unfolded laundry. She was pacing around the kitchen, flinging open cabinets like she was looking for something to throw. Then came the classic. I do everything in this house, and you still have the audacity to act like you're tired? I didn't even look up from my coffee. Everything? That's a bold statement, I said casually. I probably should have stopped there, but of course I didn't. Remind me, when was the last time you put oil in the car? Or took a wrench to anything that didn't come from IKEA? That set her off like a firecracker. Oh, so your chores are harder than mine now, she snapped. What? Greasing the garage door once every 6 months is what you call hard work. Try managing this house, the kids, meals, cleaning, every single day. Look, I've heard versions of this speech before, but this time, she said it with that look in her eyes. You know the one. The, I dare you to challenge me kind of look. So I said, all right, let's switch. She paused. What? Let's switch. 2 weeks. You take over all the stuff I usually do around here, and I'll do yours. She scoffed. You wouldn't last 3 days folding laundry and cleaning up after everyone. Maybe, but that's not what I'm suggesting. I leaned back in my chair, still calm. You keep your daily stuff. But on top of that, you take over my responsibilities. You know, the ones that don't count. Car maintenance, yard work, house repairs, all that easy stuff. Just 2 weeks. She stared at me like I'd just challenged her to a cage fight. Deal. No backing out after 3 days. I said deal, didn't I? So we shook on it right there, in the middle of a messy kitchen, surrounded by cereal bowls and defrosting chicken. By noon, she already had a to-do list. I saw her writing down things like cut grass, check tire pressure, garage door grease, tighten loose kitchen cabinet, and take kids to football practice. I even offered to give her a quick rundown of what I normally handle, but she waved it off. How hard can it be? I mean, it's not brain surgery. That was her line. Not brain surgery. It was almost entertaining to watch how confident she was. She even bought herself some work gloves and posted a selfie in front of the lawn mower like she was going to war. The first signs of regret didn't take long, but I'll save that for later. That night, while I was folding laundry on the couch and the kids were fighting over who used all the hot water, she was in the garage trying to figure out where I kept the engine oil. I didn't say anything. I could hear her muttering through the walls. Why are there so many damn tools in here? I just kept folding, humming to myself. Here's the thing. This wasn't about proving who had it worse. Not for me, anyway. I just got tired of hearing that I barely did anything around here. Like my role had no weight unless it involved a mop or a vacuum. It's funny how invisible some tasks become when they're done right. No one praises a gate that opens smoothly or a car that always starts in the cold. But mess one thing up, and suddenly everyone notices. So yeah, this wasn't revenge. This was education. And honestly, I was curious. Maybe she'd do great. Maybe she'd handle everything like a pro, and I'd have to eat my words. But something told me that wasn't going to happen. I didn't say anything when she knocked over the can of WD-40 in the garage. I didn't laugh when she asked if unleaded meant the same thing as diesel. I just watched, kept quiet, and waited. It was going to be a long 2 weeks. But I was ready. And judging by the confused look she gave the lawnmower's pull cord the next morning, she wasn't. Day one hit her harder than I expected. She was up early, all geared up like she was going on a hiking trip. Ball cap, old sneakers, gloves that still had the tag on. She looked proud, actually. Coffee in one hand, checklist in the other. She gave me a look like, you ready to watch and learn? I just nodded and moved out of her way. Her first task? Cut the grass. Now, to be fair, our backyard isn't massive, but it's not tiny either. Enough space to be annoying when the weather's hot. And that morning? Hot. Not scorching, but humid enough that you felt sticky the second you stepped outside. I was watching from the kitchen window, pretending to clean up breakfast. She pulled the lawnmower out of the shed like it was a treasure chest. Took her a minute to figure out how to unfold the handle. Then came the real test, getting it started. You know that small engine pull cord most mowers have? Yeah. She tugged on it like it was attached to a bag of feathers. Nothing. Then again. Still nothing. Third time, it coughed, then died. I counted 7 attempts before she paused, hands on her hips, already sweaty. I opened the window slightly, just enough to hear her mutter something about how stupid the machine was. Now here's where it gets better. Our neighbor, the guy who always finds an excuse to be outside when something mildly interesting happens, was trimming his hedge. He saw her struggling and came over, still wearing his sunglasses like he was in a commercial. "You need help with that?" he asked. She smiled, the kind of forced smile you give when your pride's already bruised. "No, I got it." He offered again. "It's a little tricky when it hasn't been used in a while." She waved him off, pulled the cord again, and this time the mower sputtered to life, but only for 2 seconds before dying again. The neighbor just shrugged and walked away, but I could tell she was fuming. Eventually, she got it going. Barely. And by then she was sweating like she'd run a marathon. She started mowing, but it wasn't going well. The lines were messy. She missed entire patches and left others half-cut. The mower kept clogging with grass because she didn't adjust the deck height, and instead of stopping to clear it, she kicked the side of the machine like that was going to fix anything. I stayed quiet. After about 40 minutes, the grass was technically cut, but the yard looked worse than when she started. Uneven, clumpy, like a bad haircut. She came inside without saying much, tossed her gloves on the counter, and went straight for the fridge. She chugged water, then just stood there with the door open like she needed the cold air more than the drink. "You good?" I asked, keeping it casual. She didn't answer right away, just closed the fridge slowly and said, "That mower is awful." I said, taking a bite of toast. "Could be the operator." She didn't laugh, not even a fake one. After lunch, she moved on to the garage. The grease for the garage door was on her list. I reminded her gently, "Don't overdo it with the spray, or you'll end up with black streaks all over the floor." She rolled her eyes. "I'm not an idiot." 2 hours later, the garage smelled like a chemical factory. She sprayed so much silicone grease on the rollers that it dripped down the track and pooled near the entrance. One of the kids ran through it with their bike and slid halfway across the floor. I helped clean that mess up. No sarcasm, no lectures, just towels and a mop. By the end of the day, she was dragging. That confident stride from the morning was gone. She didn't say anything about it, but I saw her Google how to properly mow a lawn that night while she was pretending to check emails. The kids asked her if she was doing dad's chores now, and she said yes with a smile, but I could tell the smile wasn't real. It was the kind you use to avoid admitting defeat. Day 1 had humbled her, but we still had 13 more to go. The next couple of days were quiet. She stopped making confident comments. No more checklist updates out loud. No more watch and learn attitude. But she was still committed. I'll give her that. On the 3rd day, she decided to tackle the garage door and the car maintenance, both on her own terms. Mid-morning, she grabbed the spray can of grease again and told me, "I'll fix the noise the garage makes when it opens. It's always squealing. You clearly didn't do a good job last time." I just nodded and moved aside. She opened the garage, crouched by the tracks, and started spraying everything. I mean everything. Hinges, rollers, the chain, the motor housing, even the lock mechanism, which didn't need grease at all. I watched from a distance. She didn't want my help, and I wasn't offering any. There's a certain type of pride you don't interrupt. 10 minutes later, the garage door was soaked and dripping. It didn't just squeak anymore, it groaned. And now it moved slower than before. When she tested it, it jolted halfway, paused, then continued with a grinding noise that honestly sounded worse than the original problem. "Is that normal?" she asked, pretending she wasn't already regretting it. "Depends," I said. "Was your goal to make it louder?" She shot me a look that could have burned through drywall. "It's probably just breaking in the spray. I'll check it later." Next up on her list was the car. It was due for a basic inspection, oil, fluids, tire pressure. I usually take care of that every couple of months. She said she'd handle it, said she didn't need an appointment because, and I quote, "It's a quick job, they'll squeeze me in." She left around noon. 45 minutes later, I got a text. Why do they talk to me like I'm dumb? I didn't reply. I figured I'd let her explain in person. When she came back, she tossed the car keys on the kitchen counter like they were hot. She looked frustrated, sweaty, and done. They didn't even look at the car. Said I needed to schedule something online. Then the guy explained how oil works like I've never seen a car before. I asked her if she wanted help setting the appointment, but she waved me off. "No, I'll figure it out." I just didn't expect them to treat me like I was clueless. She sat down and rubbed her temples. I could tell the pride was still holding her back from just saying, "This is harder than I thought." Instead, she blamed the mechanic, the garage, and even the car itself. Also, she added, what's with all the warning lights on the dashboard? There aren't any, I said. They only show when the ignition's off. You sure you didn't turn the key halfway without starting it? She didn't answer. Later that evening, she asked where I kept the air pressure gauge. I told her it was in the toolbox drawer with the measuring tapes. She opened the toolbox like it was a puzzle box. Why do you have 3 different kinds of screwdrivers? She asked. Because not everything is a Phillips head, I said. She didn't laugh, just kept rummaging until she found the gauge, then asked me how to use it. You push it onto the valve. It's not a rocket launch. She went out to the driveway with the tool and a small air compressor I'd already plugged in. About 15 minutes later, she came back in with black smudges on her knees and a look that said she didn't want to talk about it. The rear left tire was underinflated, she said. Good catch, I replied genuinely. She nodded but didn't look too proud. I think she realized something. Small tasks aren't always small when you don't usually do them. That night, she didn't touch the checklist. She sat quietly with her laptop on the couch while I helped one of the kids fix a broken toy drawer. She looked over at us once and then looked away. No jokes, no sarcasm, just silence. The kind that comes when you've bitten off more than you thought, but it's too soon to quit. The next big hit came on a Thursday morning, school run day. Normally, I do the drop-off and pick-up runs. It's not far, but traffic around the school is like a demolition derby mixed with a circus. People cutting in, double parking, kids running across the road while their parents shout from the sidewalk. It's chaos wrapped in small talk and honking horns. But today, that job was hers. She left the house looking stressed already. One of the kids couldn't find their lunchbox. The other needed help with a shoe, and she was juggling it all while holding car keys and checking the time every 30 seconds. By the time she backed out of the driveway, she'd already forgotten to open the garage fully, so the car scraped the edge of the door on the way out. I heard the sound and winced. Nothing serious, just a small dent, but she didn't even notice. She came back 40 minutes later, parked, and walked straight into the house like she'd just been mugged by traffic itself. She tossed her keys onto the hallway table, kicked off her shoes, and muttered, I don't know how you deal with that every morning. I just raised an eyebrow. No words. She went to pour herself coffee, but paused and groaned. Oh my God, she said, what's that dripping noise? I followed her into the laundry room, where the water heater sits. Sure enough, there was a slow, steady drip coming from one of the joints on the pipe above the tank. Nothing major, yet, but if left alone, that drip could turn into a problem. She turned to me. What is that? Compression fitting's loose, I said, crouching to check it out. I've tightened it before. Probably just needs a quick adjustment. She crossed her arms. No, I'll do it. It's my job this week, remember? I handed her the wrench and stepped back. She looked at the pipe like it was mocking her. She climbed onto the small step stool, struggled a bit with the grip, and after a few seconds of fumbling, tried twisting the fitting. Wrong direction. She loosened it instead of tightening. Suddenly the drip turned into a steady stream. Wait, 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 I said, stepping in. No, I've got it, she snapped, still twisting. She didn't have it. Water started pouring down the side of the heater, soaking the floor mat and hitting the bottom shelf. She finally froze, dropped the wrench, and stepped down, water splashing at her feet. I grabbed a towel and shut off the valve above the pipe, stopping the flow. The whole thing lasted maybe a minute, but the silence afterward felt longer. She looked down at the puddle forming on the tile, breathing heavily, wet socks and all. I didn't know it was that sensitive, she said finally. It's not, I answered. You just twisted the wrong way. She didn't argue. She spent the next hour drying the floor, muttering about how none of this stuff was as simple as it looked. Later that day, she had to pick up the kids again. She left early this time, maybe hoping to avoid the mess she ran into that morning. She didn't avoid it. She texted me from the car. Who lets their kid out in the middle of the street? I hate this. Also, what do I do if another parent tells me I'm blocking them? I replied, smile, nod, pretend you care. She didn't text back after that. That night, I fixed the pipe. Took less than 5 minutes. She watched from the door and didn't say a word. Not in defiance, just quiet. Like she was finally realizing that these little things weren't so little when you had to handle all of them without help. And the funny part? I wasn't enjoying this. Not like she probably thought I would. There wasn't any satisfaction in watching her struggle. Honestly, I just wanted her to see the weight of what I usually carried. not for pity, but for recognition. Because it's always easier to judge a job when you're not the one doing it. And judging by the way she stared at the wrench in my hand like it was a foreign object, I had a feeling she was starting to understand that. The next morning started off quietly. She didn't say anything about the pipe. No jokes, no comments, not even a sarcastic jab. Just poured her coffee and sat in silence at the kitchen table. I was tempted to ask how she was feeling, but I knew better. Sometimes, the best way to let someone process something is to just let them sit with it. That Friday was trash day. I always take the bins out Thursday night, but of course, that was on her list now. She'd forgotten the night before, so she had to haul them to the curb in the morning, which meant dragging 2 full bins down the driveway while traffic was already picking up. From the living room window, I watched her wrestle with them. The lid on the recycling bin wasn't latched properly, so halfway down the driveway, it flipped open and spilled half its contents. Milk jugs, boxes, a pizza flyer that somehow fluttered all the way into the neighbor's hedge. She looked around, hoping nobody saw, then started picking everything up. Her ponytail came loose halfway through. One of the kids' juice boxes had leaked inside the bin, and I don't know what it landed on, but when she pulled it out, the smell made her gag from 10 feet away. She dropped it like it bit her. By the time she got both bins lined up at the curb, her hoodie had streaks of something that looked suspiciously like yogurt, and her shoe was soaked. She walked back up the driveway holding one glove in her hand, the other nowhere in sight. I opened the front door just enough to toss her a new pair. Want some bleach wipes too? Or is that part of the experience? She didn't even look at me, just walked straight to the laundry room. Later that afternoon, the kids were home early because of a half day. She forgot, got the time wrong. Again, something I usually handle. So instead of picking them up, the school called me, and I had to leave work to grab them. When I came back, she was sitting at the dining table surrounded by a stack of folded towels. Probably an attempt to feel useful, I guess. I dropped my keys and said, "Guess who got a surprise call from the school today?" She looked up slowly. I mixed up the time. Clearly. She nodded and looked back down at the towels. They were fine, right? They were fine. The office secretary, though, thinks we're both idiots now. Still no smile from her. No comeback. Just silence. I started to realize something around then. This wasn't fun for her anymore. At first, she was trying to prove something. Maybe to me, maybe to herself. That she could handle all these simple things. But now it was all stacking up. That evening, she decided to handle dinner. Not cooking. I've always done most of the meals. But picking it up. She wanted to run the errands. Said she'd go get groceries, grab dinner, and put gas in the car too. "I'll be back in an hour," she said. Almost 2 hours later, she came back carrying a single bag of takeout and nothing else. "I forgot the gas," she admitted before I could even ask. "And the groceries?" She dropped the bag on the counter. "They were out of half the stuff I needed. And I couldn't find the pasta brand you like, so I just left it." "Did you ask someone?" I didn't feel like explaining what I was looking for. The store was packed. She stood there for a moment, staring at the bag like it had betrayed her. "This is exhausting." She wasn't talking about dinner. She finally sat down and looked at me. Really looked. Not angry, not defensive. Just tired. "I don't know how you do all this without losing your mind." I didn't say anything. I just nodded. Not out of smugness, but because that was the first real moment of honesty she'd shown since this whole thing started. Then the youngest came running in and announced he'd accidentally spilled a glass of juice under the couch. She just stared at the wall for a few seconds, then stood up and said, "I'll get the towels." And for once, I didn't stop her. The next morning, I came downstairs and found her already up. Hair a mess, slippers half on, staring blankly at the microwave as if it owed her money. The coffee pot was empty, and judging by the way she was holding her mug upside down under the machine, I assumed she forgot to actually press brew. I walked over, hit the button, and said nothing. She didn't even pretend to be okay anymore. The usual defensive energy was gone. The kind of tired she looked like? That's the kind of tired you can't sleep off. The kind that settles in your bones after a week of being pulled in 20 different directions, none of them optional. She turned to me and just said, "Can we talk?" Now, when someone says that, your brain immediately prepares for either divorce papers or some kind of emotional ambush. But I nodded and sat down anyway. She sat across from me, mug still empty. "I don't think I ever really understood what your days looked like," she began. "Like, not truly. I just assumed it was routine stuff. Tasks. Chores. Things you just did because they had to be done. And I thought it couldn't be that hard. I didn't say anything. Just let her talk. But this past week, she continued, I've never felt more disorganized in my life. I've messed up pickups, forgotten basic errands, broken something every single day, and the house smells like spoiled milk because I can't find where I dropped that juice box. I raised a finger. It's behind the TV stand. She blinked. Seriously? Found it yesterday. I was waiting to see if you'd notice. She exhaled hard and almost laughed, but it came out more like a wheeze. I don't want to switch anymore, she said finally. I'm done. You win. I didn't know we were playing. She gave me a look. You know what I mean. I leaned back in the chair. So what did we learn? She rolled her eyes. That I should never touch plumbing again. I shook my head. That managing a house, and all the invisible stuff, isn't background noise. It's not just something that gets done. It's a full-time mental marathon. Every day. She nodded slowly. Then she added, I also realized that I never said thank you for all the things you've been doing without complaining. I always just thought that's what you were supposed to do. I leaned forward. I thought the same about you, which is probably part of the problem. We didn't have some deep emotional breakthrough, no tearful hugs or dramatic music playing in the background. But something did shift in that moment. For once, neither of us was defending our own effort. We were just acknowledging the mess and the fact that keeping everything running, even halfway smoothly, required more teamwork than we'd been giving it. Later that day, she offered to help me fix the garage gate. It had been squeaking like a dying raccoon for 2 weeks. I handed her the grease and showed her how to apply it without overdoing it. She asked a few questions, listened, and didn't insist on doing it all herself this time. Afterward, she stepped back and smiled. You know, I thought this kind of stuff was beneath me. Oh yeah, I smirked. And now I think it's just exhausting. You're still beneath me, though. I laughed. That sarcasm was back. Finally, we didn't go back to the exact same routine as before. Not completely. Something had changed. She didn't offer to take over every chore again, but she also didn't pretend they were magically happening by themselves anymore. If I was fixing something in the garage, she'd bring me water or ask what I needed. If I was mowing the lawn, she'd manage the kids inside without me having to ask twice. And I started appreciating her contributions more too. Not just noticing when things were clean or organized, but actually saying something. It was like we'd both been walking around blindfolded, convinced we each had it harder. But once we took those blindfolds off, it wasn't about who was right anymore. It was about not drowning each other in silence and resentment. So no, the 14-day perspective switch didn't go the way she thought it would. She didn't conquer the week. She didn't prove a point. But in the end, it gave us something we actually needed, a real look into each other's daily grind. And yeah, I still do the school runs. But now, at least, someone makes sure my coffee's ready when I get back.